Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BSN Network podcast. Today is Friday, July 29th. Hope everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, July 29th here today. It is Friday. We are almost at the weekend here today, and then tomorrow, obviously, is Saturday, Sunday, and the weekend. So, looking forward to that. A lot of sports going on this weekend. You got training camps going on. Tomorrow is back together Saturday. You got all sorts of baseball action, so that's always good. Yankees-Royals last night. Yankees get the 1-0 win. It was an interesting game for sure. One of those games where Yankees had two hits. One of them was in the ninth inning. The other one was a two-out single by Gleyber Torres. So the Yankees' second hit was the home run walk-off by Aaron Judge, second batter of the ninth inning against Scott Barlow. So Yankees get the win. And look, you could say, it was only one run. You could say all these different things. A win is a win. Yankees, Judge walks it off, and for a team that needed a win, for a team that needed just to get back into the win column after the tough Subway Series, just a tough start to the second half in general, last night was a victory. That's all that matters. It wasn't pretty. Tyone pitched. Our pitching was phenomenal. It wasn't pretty batting-wise, hitting-wise, but it's a dub nonetheless, and that's all that matters. At the end of the day, they're going to ask you, did you win the game? And the Yankees did that last night. So Judge walks it off again. He's now on pace for 63 home runs. That was his 39th of the season. And just to put into perspective what he's done this year, Aaron Judge has 39 home runs this year. And last season he had 39 home runs all of last year. 148 games I think it was? Or this year, what has he played? 90-something games? He's already got 39 home runs. So last year was phenomenal. This year, even better. So just to put in perspective what he's done this year, he's done some, he was already on another level. He has now taken it to cloud nine. He's on top of the baseball landscape right now in terms of performance. So good win last night for the Yankees. They'll be back in action tonight, game 2 of the 4-game set against the Royals. Mets will also be back in action today after a day off yesterday. They'll open up a 3-game set down in Miami against the Marlins. So we shall see how that all plays out. It's funny. They go from playing these high-energy games to Royals and a high-energy game for the Mets to Marlins. So you'll see how these teams bounce back. So anyway, let's get to the topics for today's podcast. Got a little football and a little hockey. Yes, I did just say that. We are talking some hockey here on the program. I talk a lot of hockey during the season, but in the offseason there hasn't been much hockey news, but there was a little bit of news yesterday with the New York Rangers, so we'll get into it. We're going to start today's podcast with a little bit of Jets news. Jets signed Quan Alexander. Through all these rumors, this has been something Jet fans, myself included, have been talking about for a really long time, dating all the way back to free agency, really, even prior to the draft. All the way back to, February and into March and stuff. Jet fans have been kind of talking about Kwon Alexander. It's taken a very long time. There's been these pop-up rumors here and there. Yesterday, he posted on Twitter that he's going to make his decision like a couple hours prior, and then like 3 hours later, he signed with the Jets. So Jets were obviously in on him all along, but took some time. But the Jets bring him in, sign Kwon Alexander, really like the move, good depth addition for us, and a veteran to a young linebacker room. And also, this shows something about how players view the New York Jets around the NFL. I'll get into that to start things off. Also going to get to the Rangers extending Kaapo Kakko, all the rumors around that, all the different scenarios Rangers have extended him, the possible offer sheet, all these different things. Rangers extend Kaapo Kakko, and he will be a New York Ranger for 2 more years as they extend him. So, a good move for the Rangers. I like it. I think it's a low-risk type move. He's a guy that's still, it seems like, waiting to burst. He shows these flashes. Obviously, a part of that kid line during the postseason was a healthy scratch game 6. They kind of went into the offseason with a little bit of cloudiness, I should say, in terms of his Ranger future. But the Rangers lock him up for another 2 more years. So we'll get to that. And then we'll finish things off with the New York sports update. Yankees tonight against the Royals, game 2 of 4-game set. Mets tonight against the Marlins, first game of a 3-game set down in Miami. It's just funny because last night, by the way, 48,000 showed up to that Yankee game. More than actually the Wednesday night Subway Series. So Yankee fans still showing up even when the Royals are in town. But it's just funny because you can notice the difference in energy watching last night's game just as a fan. Now I'm still into it. I'm obviously still watching every pitch, and I'm still going to get fired up when something good happens. But there you could tell the energy difference in the stadium. I mean, there wasn't, with 2 strikes on the batter, when there's a strikeout, you didn't hear that roar, or it's just different. It's just Yankees Mets is just so much excitement, and then you go playing the Royals, who go into last night's game below 20 games below 500, and now the Mets got to go down to Miami to a place that does not get much attendance at all, and to a team that's rebuilding just like the Royals. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Mets bounce back, too, after a high-intensity series against the Yankees. Anyway, a lot to get to on this Friday edition of the BSN podcast. With all that being said, let's get right into it. Alrighty, so we're going to start today with the Jets signing of Kwon Alexander. Like I mentioned in the open, in my intro, this has been something that's kind of been going on for a really long time. I mean, you can go really all the way back to free agency, back in March, draft, April, May, all these things. I think when we got into kind of the dog days of the offseason, this was one of those remaining names that were out there that Jet fans were wondering, look, and when we didn't really address the linebacker in the draft, and Kobe Dean was available, didn't really jump on him. When we didn't address the linebacker in the draft, the Jets needed some linebacker depth, and you were kind of wondering where that was going to come from. Were they going to maybe sign an undrafted guy? Were they going to bring guys in and see who fits, who doesn't? Were they going to make a trade, signing? We were all kind of wondering where it was coming from. And like I said, this has been going on for a really long time. I mean, like I said, all the way back to, February and into March, when free agency opened, this was a name that was on the Jets' radar. And even after the draft, when you don't draft any linebackers, and you're kind of it's kind of a wait and see game. And the Jets still are looking for that other guy, and sure enough, they go out and sign now Kwon Alexander. And it took a long time, but the fact is we now have him. We brought him in, and I love this. I really like this addition for the New York Jets because it gives much needed depth to this linebacker room. Quan Alexander, as we all know, he's a Pro Bowler. He's a guy that's been in the league, been around. He's 27 years old. He's a guy that, he's been in the league. This will be, his 10th season, I think? 6, 8, 10. This will be his 10th season, or actually 11th season. He's played 4 with Tampa, 2 with San Francisco, and then the past 2 years has been with New Orleans. So this will be his 11th season in the NFL at the age of 27. And a guy who's a veteran. He's a veteran in the locker room. Is he the player that we saw 2016, 2017 where he absolutely lit it up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I don't know if I would say that anymore. But a guy that when he's healthy provides much needed depth to this linebacker position. And like I said, we've all been kind of wondering where this was going to come from. Where the other linebacker was going to come from. Because outside of C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams, you kind of needed that other strong side inside linebacker. That Mike, he's going to be the Mike on this defense. You kind of needed that other guy, that other veteran. Outside of C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams, this is a relatively young room with Hamza Nadruldin, Jets drafted last season. And then the same thing with Jamian Sherwood, another guy the Jets drafted last season. Nadruldin out of Florida State, Jamian Sherwood out of Auburn. 2 guys that, were on the field but didn't make much of an impact in their rookie year. 2 young guys that you hope continue to develop. But the Jets needed that veteran in this locker room. Outside of C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams, they didn't have that. And this is so valuable because I talk about this oftentimes, like in sports. Anytime you can bring a veteran into a locker room, anytime you can bring a veteran into any room, quarterback room, wide receiver room, cornerbacks, offensive line, anything. Veterans are so pivotal on and off the field. They're mentors. They're leaders. They're guys that, rookies, young guys are going to ask a lot of questions. They have the answers. This is a guy that is going to be his 11th year. He's played under the solid system. He knows this defense. He was a part of that Niners team that got all the way to the Super Bowl. He has the playoff experience. For a young linebacker room, similar to what the Jets did with the cornerback room, bringing in DJ Reed, secondary in general with Jordan Whitehead as well. 2 guys with a lot of experience. Jordan Whitehead with the experience of making it to the playoffs, being a part of the Super Bowl, knowing what it takes to win. for a relatively young secondary room that includes guys like Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, all those guys, Brandon Eccles, Jason Pinnock out there, right? Those are all guys in that secondary that all are young, all are learning, and you bring in guys like even LaMarcus Joyner last year, a DJ Reed, a Jordan Whitehead, to help those guys, answer the questions, bring in that winning, know what it takes to win, that leadership, that mentor. Jets linebacker did not have that outside of C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams. And they needed that depth. And just strictly talent, too. Take the leadership part of it. I mean, this is a big upgrade for the Jets. Quan Alexander's talented. I mean, he's talented. He's had some injury issues over the past couple seasons. 6 games, 8 games, 5 games, 7 games, 12 games. He's had some issues staying healthy, staying on the field. But when he's out there, he's a talented linebacker. This isn't like we're just getting some guy that's just a veteran and will, make an impact somewhat. This is a guy that, if he could stay healthy, when he was in his prime, he was one of the better linebackers in all of football. I'm not saying he's going to be that. We don't need Kwon Alexander to be that elite linebacker. We need him to give us some depth. We need him to be crucial on passing downs, make those open field tackles, be solid in coverage, blitz a little bit, be that guy, be that inside linebacker, be that leader in that linebacker room. You don't need him to go out there and make 6 sacks this season. I mean, that would be great. We don't need him to go out there and, have 150 tackles, and play all, I shouldn't say not play all game. I mean, we would love for him to, get in there every game, be healthy. You just need him to be healthy. You need him to be that leader, that depth piece, that Mike, strong side linebacker inside, the middle inside linebacker. And now you look at this linebacker room and you have guys like Quincy Williams. You add C.J. Mosley to that mix, who's coming off of a great season, a guy that's going to rack up tackles, just an overall leader. Really like Mosley a lot. And then you add Quan Alexander now to the mix. Now this linebacker room is really shaping out to really be solid come week 1. If everything goes well throughout training camp, Quan Alexander, Quincy Williams, and C.J. Mosley, that's pretty good if you ask me, in terms of a linebacking group, as your linebackers going into the first snap on defense week 1. Trying to stop Lamar Jackson. That looks pretty good to me. So I really like this move. And a guy that 27 years old, been around, knows what he's doing. Hamsah Nasirildeen, Jamien Sherwood, 2 guys that are going to benefit from this. 2 guys that are still learning the position. 2 guys that are still second year, didn't play a ton last year, were kind of in and out, didn't get that increased role. 2 guys that will really learn from him. And just another guy on this defense. I mean, another piece. You're getting Carl Lawson back, DJ Reed, Jordan Whitehead. You add them to the mix. Sauce Gardner. I mean, this defense is really shaping out to have a really good year. As long as everybody can stay healthy and everything clicks. Quan Alexander is a big name to add to this defense. And something that Joe Douglas and this Jets front office, I think, and this is what makes it, I think, so much better, is you could tell they were zoned in on him the entire offseason. Because there's been rumors on this possible move for a really long time. Like I said, I'm repeating myself. But this goes all the way back to March, April, May. I mean, now it took until July 28th, but we finally got him. But this just shows you what this front office thinks about him. Because obviously through all those negotiations in May and April, they weren't able to come to a deal. Jets could have easily said, all right, we'll move on. We'll go to our next route. We'll try to find somebody else. No, they stuck with it. They kept talking to him. They kept, talking to him and trying to, Quan Alexander also could have been looking for the perfect opportunity. There could have been other teams. There also could have been he could have just been kind of figuring out exactly what he wants to do just in terms of his role and stuff. Does he want to go start somewhere? Does he want to be more of a leader and depth piece like he is going to be with the Jets? I mean, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of starting opportunities, but a guy that, is definitely just a big piece for the Jets. But it shows you what this front office thinks of him, because they've stuck with this for like 4 or 5 months now, where they've stuck with trying to bring him in, and they're finally able to do that. And what I like too about this is, Douglas very well could have got on the phone yesterday and said, look, we're 1 year deal. We got to get you in here. We're into training camp already. We're not going to bring you in until August. And I think, to be fair, I think it's much easier. It's going to be easier to get him in because he's already played 2 years under the solid defense. including that run to the Super Bowl. Like we all said, he was a part of that team that took one of the worst defenses in the league and turned him into one of the best. He was a big part of that. But, I think that's also maybe a reason why the Jets were being a little patient too, is it's not like he's coming in and learning a completely new system. He already knows the system. And the Jets continue to stick to their plan. Douglas has said, Saleh has said, that the day Saleh had his press conference, his opening press conference, a year ago back in January, what was it? January, right? They hired him in 2021. A year ago, this past January, when he had his press conference at the Jets training facility and, he officially became the New York Jets head coach, he said, look, we're going to bring in guys that are talented, but we're also going to bring in guys that fit the scheme. Draft picks, guys that are going to fit the scheme. A lot of these teams go out and draft or sign these guys, these big talented guys, or sign whoever's most talented, and they bring them in and they don't fit the scheme, or they don't fit what they're trying to do. They bring in a quarterback that runs for a scheme that doesn't have any running plays, or for example, Ravens. If the Ravens would go draft like a non-mobile quarterback, that'd be stupid because it doesn't fit their scheme. Their scheme is a lot of running and utilizing Lamar Jackson's legs. If they were to go sign Tom Brady right now, it wouldn't make sense. Now, I'm sure any team would sign up for signing Tom Brady, but you get what I'm saying. So a lot of teams go out there and try to sign the biggest name guys, these big talented, but they don't fit the scheme. Quan Alexander and so many guys, DJ Reed, Jordan Whitehead, all these guys, they fit what the Jets are trying to do, and they bring in guys that are similar to the system, similar to, playing with Robert Saleh. And they've stuck to that plan, and that just shows you, I think, the way that this organization is truly building from the ground up. Because Gaze, they try to take shortcuts. Signing Le'Veon Bell. Just awful. And I love the move when it happened. We all did. We all thought, Le'Veon Bell was, let's be real here. Who didn't like the Le'Veon Bell move? But though that you look at those past regimens, they failed because they brought in these guys that did not fit what they were trying to do. Saleh, Douglas, drafting players that fit. Signing, trading for guys that fit the system, fit what they're trying to do. And also, just in terms of a culture standpoint, fit. Winning. You see this pattern with the Jets. Kwon Alexander, playoff experience. Jordan Whitehead, playoff experience. CJ Uzomah, playoff experience. All these guys, playoff experience. Mosley, I know he was a past regimen, but even he had the playoff experience with Baltimore. A guy with veteran leadership. All these guys have this experience. And the Jets just continue to build. So, really solid move. Last season, you look at his numbers. He had 39 solo tackles, 3.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. He had 50 total tackles, 12 games played, 11 assists. He's going to get you about, he's had 12 sacks in his career. He's going to get you about, a sack or two. He's not a big sack guy. He's very good passing down, something the Jets struggled with last year. And like I said, 27 years old. This will be his 11th season in the NFL. 4 with Tampa, 2 with San Fran, and in the past 2 have been with New Orleans. And, one other thing I want to just close this out here, and then we'll get to the Rangers and extending Kaapo Kakko is, I'm not going to sit here and say, that Robert Saleh is the greatest coach of all time. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the Jets are the greatest, right now currently have the greatest franchise of all time and they're going to go win, 10 Super Bowls. I'm not saying that. But, you can definitely tell that the league-wide view of the New York Jets. Now, fans do not view the Jets differently. Fans, non-Jet fans still view them as the laughingstock of football, and rightfully so. The Jets have to prove themselves. If the Jets want to, if we want to erase the bad, when it comes to looking at the logo, if you want to erase the bad taste or that bad look that it brings, you got to go out and win football games. That's the bottom line. But in terms of player views, coaches, other teams, the view on the New York Jets is completely different. Kwon Alexander, obviously, he could have re-signed with the Saints. He could have went many other places. He chose the Jets. He chose his former defensive coordinator. He chose a system that he's familiar with. And he's buying into what the Jets and Robert Saleh are preaching to these players, to these free agents. Like, you can definitely tell. And like I said, I'm not saying, I just want to, it just makes you feel really good as a Jet fan that it seems like there's finally stability within the organization. Because you didn't see this with guys going to Adam, Adam Gase didn't bring, nobody wanted to play for Adam Gase. Even Todd Bowles, towards the end of his run, you could tell guys, in a way, I shouldn't say that because, towards the end of Bowles' run, it's different because I think the big thing with Bowles is, he was kind of, it was just, his coaching tenure was weird. But you could tell during the Rex Ryan era, at the end of that, guys stopped buying in. Guys never bought into what Gay's preaching. But even last year and into this year, guys are buying in to what Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, and this Jets organization is building. They like that they're building it from the ground up, using draft picks, using their draft capital, bringing in guys that fit the system, bringing in guys that they, really believe are good scheme fits and culture fits and are going to help this team get better and better. You could just tell that there's a different feel. For a guy that we've been talking to for 5 months, if this was Adam Gase, sure he wouldn't have signed here. But he signs here because he believes in Saleh, believes in what these guys are doing, and you could just tell. Even Lincoln Tomlinson signing with the Jets. Another guy, playoff experience, Pro Bowler. There's a lot of other, I'm sure, flashy, shiny teams out there that he could have went to. No, he went here in the trenches with the Jets because he believes that what they're building is ultimately going to turn into something bigger. And I think that's really big for us Jet fans to understand. So, like I said, I think this year competitive is obviously a realistic goal. They got to be competitive this year. If we win 4 games this year, it's going to be over. They're going to have to restart again. But going into this season, you could definitely see guys are buying in. Now it's time to go out there and win football games. So, a good signing for the New York Jets, bringing in Kwon Alexander. Like I said, the big thing with him is just health. He's dealt with some injuries over the past couple years. If he can stay healthy, this is definitely a solid asset for us. A guy, now you look at this linebacker room, Jamian Sherwood, Mosley, Quincy Williams, Nasruddin, Kwon Alexander, Marcel Harris is also mixed in there. He's another guy from the Niners that, knows what, Saleh brings to the table. So, a lot of Niners guys here. And you look at the secondary, Sauce, Joyner, Whitehead, DJ Reed, Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles, all those guys, Jason Pinnock at the safety position. So there's a lot of young guys in that secondary, and there's also been a couple veterans. I mean, you look at what the Jets are doing. I mean, it's clear. Each room, you look at Zach Wilson, brought in Joe Flacco last year, right? You look at the running back room, Tevin Coleman's a guy, Ty Johnson. Now, the running back room too, Michael Carter has taken over a leadership role. 2 young guys. And Michael Carter said yesterday that Breece Hall's been asking him a lot of questions. And Michael Carter has been, Michael Carter knows a lot because he learned a lot last year from Tevin Coleman. And you see how this is kind of a good domino effect. Tevin Coleman teaches Michael Carter a lot of things. Now Bryce Hall's asking questions. Michael Carter only in his second year is turning into that leader. I think that's big. All these young guys learning off of each other with a little bit of veteran mixed in. You look at the receiving core, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Gary Wilson, Davis, Barrios, all those guys. Receivers are a little bit different because, you could be, you could be extremely young, but as long as the biggest thing with receiving core is building that chemistry with your quarterback. That's the biggest thing. I think 2 young guys like Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson, that I think goes really far because they came into the league together as as Wilson got better, Elijah Moore got better, right? And I think you're going to see that same thing with Garrett Wilson. When Zach Wilson has good games, Garrett Wilson's going to have good games. And I don't mean that to be Captain Obvious. I just mean that because they're going to grow together. Zach Wilson only second year, Garrett Wilson coming in as a rookie, right? You look at the tight end room. Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzomah, really, really 2 veteran guys. And you bring in Jeremy Rucker. Can learn from 2 established tight ends. So, I could go up and down the roster, but you could see the way the Jets are doing this. So, good signing for the Jets, bringing in Kwon Alexander. We shall see. I'm sure he'll come into camp soon. I'm sure he'll speak to the media. Finally, signed Kwon Alexander. So all these months of these different rumors, Jets finally make the move. Kwon Alexander is officially a New York Jet. All right, so now shifting from a little bit of football to a little bit of hockey. Yeah, I have not talked hockey in a long time. It's funny because we talk so much of it during the regular season, specifically, obviously, the postseason. But, just like any league's off-season, football, don't talk a ton of football. You talk, good amount of football when free agency and draft is opening up. But in May and stuff, there's not much football stuff going on. June and then into July and stuff, not much going on until late July and obviously into August right now where all training camps are starting up. But we're going to get a little bit into hockey today because the New York Rangers yesterday have agreed to a 2-year contract extension with forward Kaapo Kakko. It's a 2-year deal, $2.1 million AAV, average annual value, and this was first reported by The Athletic. And, it kind of erases all the rumors. This erases all the different possibilities of, offer sheet. Were they going to get rid of them? Because if you want to backtrack a little bit, Kaapo Kakko was a part of that kid line. And I think that's been the biggest thing with Kaapo Kakko. He's shown flashes. He's going into his 4th year. He hasn't really made that big jump yet from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. He hasn't made that big jump. But I also think a little bit of his role on this roster, when people want to compare him and Jack Hughes, it's a little hard. Because Jack Hughes is the face of the franchise for the Devils. It's Jack Hughes. Like, for the Rangers, I wouldn't so much say Kaapo Kakko is the face of the franchise. It's, Panarin, Igor, all these different guys, Mika, Kreider. Lafreniere and Kakko kind of are just there to complement. Though they don't need to be these 30, 40 goal scorers on a roster that already has a ton of goal scoring. When you have Mika, Kreider, who scores over 50 goals, and you have, Panarin, who we all know, Breadman's good for a ton of goals and a ton of playmaking assists throughout his season. You don't really need Kaapo Kakko and Lafreniere to score 40 goals for you. So I think a lot of people, when they look at it, they try to compare Kaapo Kakko and Jack Hughes a little too much. Well, look at the situations. Situations are completely different. Jack Hughes is like a one-man show and with the Devils because they got nobody else. Kaapo Kakko, there's a ton of pieces on the Rangers. So I just wanted to start with that. Like, I think a lot of people, when you see it all over social media today, it's like, people are like, oh, well, look at his numbers, look at this, look at that. There's a completely different, there's a roster difference there, too. He's also with two other young guys, and Philip Hedl and Lafreniere, who are also all learning, and they're all going to have their moments to shine. Now, I will admit, Kakko has been a little bit underwhelming, but he's shown flashes, and I think coming into the league at so young, he's 21 years old, and he's going into his 4th year. I think that says a lot. He's 21, and he's going into his 4th season. I think that says a lot. A lot of times a lot of hockey players are young too, but, you look at some of these guys, they're going into their 4th season at the age of 25 or 26, not 21. So he is young, and I think that's a little bit of it too. He's young. This is almost maybe like now, it's almost like now he's really finding his stride. Because as a teenager going to play for a big market in New York, there's a lot that comes to that. But his future going into this offseason was a little cloudy. Because, as we all know, that kid line throughout the Pittsburgh series, throughout the Carolina series, even to start the Tampa Bay series, was phenomenal. It was the Rangers' best line. The kid line, Philip Hedl, Kaapo Kakko, Alexis Lafreniere. Even if they weren't scoring a goal, they were putting constant pressure on net. There would be that burst of energy where they would get, 2, 3, 4 shots on goal a shift. It would get the crowd involved. It would get the rest of the team, energized and ready to go. And it would just change the complexion of the game. And we saw that throughout the Pittsburgh series, throughout the Carolina series. And as we all remember, called The Shift in the Tampa series, where they had that long shift. They ended up scoring. And, they ended up winning that game. I think, I want to say that was game 1 of that Tampa series, which ended up completely falling apart. I don't like to think about that Tampa series because it's so painful because we were winning 2-0 game 3. And then that power play goal hit and we blew that, once we blew that 2-0 lead, I knew the series was over. Things just completely shifted. If you don't blow that 2-0 lead, you take a 3-0 lead, you're going to win. I don't care what you say. You're going to win the series. You're not coming back from down 3-0. But then he got healthy scratch game 6. Game 6, one of the biggest games of the year for the Rangers, trying to force a game 7. Kaapo Kakko gets scratched. And that kind of led to a very cloudy, foggy future for the Ranger forward. And you think only going into his fourth year, are the Rangers already giving up on him already? Is this, something that we're reading too much into? But at the end of the day, it was Gerard Gallant. He's a coach. Look, whatever he believes is going to help the team win, going to best, get the team ready to win, he's going to make the move. At the hindsight 2020, if Kaapo Kakko was in or if Kaapo Kakko was out, I don't really think the Rangers would have won that game. They had no offense. They lost 2-1. Their only goal came late in the third period by Frank Vetrano, and then 20-something seconds later, Steven Stamkos scored. So I don't think it would have meant much. One guy's not going to change the complexion of, one guy's not going to carry a hockey team. Now, there will be nights where a guy is 3-4, might have a hat trick, but it's also imperative to the defense and stuff to hold on. Hockey's a team sport. I always say this in sport. Football's team sport, baseball's team sport, hockey's team sport. The only sport that can take one guy that can carry your team is basketball. And it's proven. LeBron James, nobody else was good on that Cavs team. So, just to prove my point that, everyone says, oh, Kaapo Kakko should have been in. I disagree with them having him as a healthy scratch. But at the end of the day, Game 6, there was something, we lost 3 straight games in a row. There was something that had to be changed. There was going to be a guy that was going to have to be a healthy scratch. There was going to be a change. You knew it was coming. It was just, who was it and when was it going to happen? Turns out it was game 6. And, goes into the the offseason now with a little bit of a cloudy future. But the fact that they're extending him, I have no issue with it. Because, a lot of times it takes some of these guys long time to, some guys develop and take longer than others. It sometimes takes guys a year or two to develop. Every guy comes in, he was a teenager going to play for the New York Rangers. A teenager coming from Finland going to play for the biggest market in all of sports. You can't tell me he didn't feel pressure. There's a lot of pressure on Kaapo Kakko. Right? So, I think a little bit of his development, maybe, kind of being like this at times, is just a lot of pressure. Being in the playoffs. I thought he fared pretty well in the postseason this year, which I think is big. I think that's one of the biggest things people are missing out on. The kid line, which involved him, was really a big factor in the postseason. 19 games played this postseason, 5 points, 3 assists, 2 goals. I think that's pretty promising. For a team that's going to make the postseason a whole lot more, he's a guy that had that experience. At 21 years old, it's big. A lot of times these guys get drafted high, they don't get experience until their 4th, 5th year. Look at Jack Hughes. He's going to his 4th year. He's had 0 playoff experience. And he's a guy that, who knows when they will make the playoffs. That might be another year or 2 from now. They got to find a goaltender. I know Vitek Vanecek and Mackenzie Blackwood are kind of their 2 guys, but that's a team, too, that you never know. Kaapo Kakko got that valuable playoff experience, and he's still young. And I think that's why people, too, when they look at it, it's like, oh, he's done nothing in these 3 years. He's only 21. He's only 21. And I have my doubts. I'm not saying he's going to turn into the next Sid the Kid and single-handedly win 3 championships for the Rangers, 3 cups. But you can't give up on the kid yet. He's 21 years old. He's going into his 4th year. He's shown glimpses of being that legit forward where he's that winger that could just, just really can do special things. But it's not been consistent. He showed it throughout the postseason, showed it throughout last regular season, showed glimpses throughout his rookie and his 2nd year. You also got to realize this is a guy that came in, then his 2nd year was the COVID year, and then last year, he played was a normal year. Last year in a way was almost like his first normal year because your first year you're going to have issues as, your first year is going to be tough as a rookie to begin with. Your then 2nd year to be the shortened COVID season, it was almost like last year was his first official year. Last season had 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points, plus minus of plus 9. So I have no issue with this. I think it's fine to extend him. He's a young asset going into his 4th year. You can't give up on the guy yet. If he struggles again this year and again next year, well, that's a different story. But you got to give him some time. And also on a roster, when you look at it, does he really need to be that 40-goal scorer? No, we have 3, 4, some of the best goal scorers in all hockey. you don't really need that. Kaapo Kakko doesn't need to be that guy that dominates. I understand he's second overall pick, and he's always going to have that weighing on him. But, I'm fine with the move. Fine with the move. So they extend him 2 more years. And like I said, look, if he struggles this year and he is really bad and he maybe takes a drop, well, then that's a different story. But if he continues to just, show a little bit of progress, maybe make this big jump this year, I think that would be very big for this New York Ranger team. So we'll see how it all plays out. All right, so we'll see here. But Tyler Mott's a guy now with this move. It's going to be interesting to see if they, hold on to him. We'll see. He's a guy that, we'll see. He's a guy that, was a really solid addition for the Rangers last year. Really, was a spark for this team in the postseason. With this move, you wonder if the Rangers are able to hold on to him, if they're going to have enough. He's a guy that's kind of one of those one last remaining free agent that you would love to see brought back. So we'll see how that plays out there. All right, so let's wrap things up here today on this Friday with a little bit of the New York sports update and the rest of baseball. Today you got the Reds, Orioles, Nationals, Cardinals, Pirates, Phillies, Blue Jays, Tigers, Red Sox, Brewers, Rays, Guardians, Diamondbacks, Braves, A's, White Sox, Mariners, Astros, Dodgers, Rockies, Rangers, Angels, Padres, Twins, and the Cubs, Giants. Mets, Marlins tonight. Mets come into tonight's game 61-37. Marlins come into tonight's game 47-52. The Mets got Chris Bassett on the mound. He's 7-7 with a 3.72 ERA. And the Marlins have Sandy Alcantara on the mound. He's 9-4 with a 1.81 ERA. Over-under set at 6.5 for tonight's game. 6:40 Eastern, SNY. Yankees, Royals tonight. Yankees come into tonight's game 67-33. Royals come into tonight's game 39-60. Royals have Chris Bubik on the mound. He's 2-6 with a 5.53 ERA, and the Yankees have Garrett Cole on the mound. He's 9-3 with a 3.09 ERA. Over under set at 8.5. 7:05 Eastern on Prime Video. So Coltrane takes the mound tonight for the Yankees, looking to take Game 2 of this 4-game set, which will set up the series victory tomorrow. All right, so as for fantasy, my main league, I'm currently winning 184, or losing actually, 185-184, so a close matchup. I got Chris Bassett on the mound tonight, and then my other league, I got no pitching. I'm currently winning 168-133, so my main league, I'm only losing by 1. Bassett's going. Got to make some roster moves. I'll probably put Luis Ariz back in. Figure out what I'm going to do with some of these other guys, Matt Carpenter, all that stuff. So we'll see who's in, who's out. Fantasy. Yeah, all of them are night games, so I don't have to worry about there being a day game. The worst thing in fantasy baseball, and I'll always say this too, like even fantasy football sometimes, is when like you put in a guy, or you had the choice of a 4 o'clock game or a 1 o'clock game. You put in the guy at a 1 o'clock game, and he does terrible for you, and then the guy at like the 4 o'clock game does great. Like, that's the one biggest thing. Like, even like, for example, Thursday night games. I hate playing guys Thursday night because once they're in, it's like you can't take them out. So it's like, do you play them Thursday night with the risk of them struggling? I find that a lot of times guys don't play well Thursday night football. I find that. Every time I put in a guy to play Thursday night, it doesn't go well. So that's the thing with fantasy baseball. You put in a guy, you have a choice between a guy at a day game or a night game. Do you put in the guy that you know is going to play the day game or the guy that you don't know is going to play the night game? And if the guy that plays the day game plays terrible, night game, plays great, he's going to regret that. But if the day game, you sit him, and the guy that plays the night game is not playing, like, it's tough. Fantasy football, I hate that. I never like Thursday night football games in fantasy. If I can avoid a guy playing a Thursday night football game in fantasy, I'll do it. Now, if it's my quarterback or if it's like my running back, like, for example, Josh Allen, first game of the season is against the Rams. If I have Josh Allen on my roster, I'm not going to bench Josh Allen because he's playing Thursday night. But there will be times where if there's a receiver that maybe is like, having an all right year, or maybe he's in the starting lineup, or he's starting for me, or he's been hot recently, but there's another receiver on my bench that's a lot better, like, I'll definitely put in that receiver. Or if there's a receiver that I don't trust, I'll definitely take him out. But it's funny because it's always tough to gauge those things. So, anyway, that will do it for the podcast. By the way, a lot of stuff going on right now with Shohei. So Shohei Ohtani, there's trade rumors out on him now. I cannot see the Angels possibly trading Ohtani. I can't see it. I just can't. I mean, it's the amount of. I mean, you talk about a Soto deal being historic. I mean, Ohtani. You talk about, supposedly if there would be a deal, the Angels would want like four of these teams' top prospects. I mean, you're getting Shohei, so give up whatever you can. But it's definitely pretty wild. So, anyway, trade deadline continues to creep closer, and you hear all these rumors. So, watch out this weekend. A lot of stuff. Mets made a trade for Tyler Naquin and also bringing a reliever. So we'll see if they do anything else. Trade deadline is Tuesday. A lot of baseball on this weekend. Training camp. For those of you who are going out to Jets training camp tomorrow, back together Saturday, enjoy it. Have a great time. Love going to training camp. I'll be going to a training camp this year as well. Won't be there tomorrow, but I'll be there coming up. One of the training camps coming up I'm going to. So looking forward to that. Enjoy for all those who are going out to training camp tomorrow. And as always, I will see you all back here on the flip side. See you all back here on Monday. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.